Hello and welcome to a genteel black hole, the home of my bookish rambles. My name's Ali, and as my teachers used to say, it's your own time you're wasting. This is the High School Required Reading Tag, a series of prompts and questions all about books that we had to read at school. It was created by Nicole from Noteworthy Fiction and Alex from Stay at Home Reader, and I was tagged by Nicole in her original video, so thanks very much, Nicole. I will put links to both Alex and Nicole's original videos in the description so that you can see those as well. But without further ado, let's get on with the questions. Question the first. High school crush. Name a book you were assigned in high school and loved at the time. Have you reread it, and did it hold up? Well, I suppose I should preface this by saying that my memory of secondary school, that's what we call it in the UK, my memory of secondary school is pretty vague at this point. It's been more than 20 years, and I didn't have a great time at the time. I just got totally burned out by the end of it. I couldn't keep up with the workload, and in the end, I kind of lost investment in the whole thing. I just kind of stopped trying. So most of these answers are going to be based on pretty vague memories. That said, one book that I remember loving when we read it in secondary school was Macbeth by William Shakespeare, which, if you know anything about my current reading tastes, probably tracks. I am a big fan of Shakespeare and a big fan of plays in general, so I suppose it makes sense that one of my favourite things that we read in school was a Shakespeare play. And I have reread it multiple times since then. And yeah, I would say it does hold up. If anything, I think I have a better appreciation and understanding of it now, reading it for my own enjoyment and in my own time, and kind of picking it apart without guidance from a teacher that I didn't really see eye to eye with. But yeah, I would say that Macbeth definitely holds up. Having said that, I also have found that there are quite a lot of other Shakespeare plays that I massively prefer over Macbeth. So it both does and doesn't in a way. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it at the time and still enjoy it. So in that sense, yeah, it does. Question the second. Gym class. Name a book you were assigned that you hated. Have you or would you give it a second chance? And this is where my memory really fails me, because while I remember not getting on well with my English teacher, I don't remember specific books being all that terrible. It was more my teacher's approach to teaching them. See, my understanding of literary analysis as it is now is that it's about reading a book and finding the evidence in the text to support your reading of it, your view of it. And the way my teacher taught it at the time, as I remember it, was very much that she would dictate what the passages meant, and therefore what the author definitely intended for them to mean. And having been a creative person for as long as I can remember, having been a songwriter since, I think I wrote my first song when I was probably like 9 years old, something like that. And that that declaration from my teacher never sat well with me, because I just felt that that's not how my creativity works, and I questioned how much other people's creativity worked in that way. So while, yes, it is important to practice literary analysis and to pick apart a text and find the clues in it to support your view, that wasn't really what we did, as far as I remember. It was more my teacher saying, yeah, this is what this means, and me going, it's one way of reading it. Is that definitely what the author intended? So I don't remember particularly hating any book as much as hating my teacher. So yeah, I probably would give anything that we read a second chance. Thing is, I can't actually remember most of what it is that we read. I should clarify that I didn't hate my teacher. That's an unfair word to use. But I definitely didn't see eye to eye with her at all. For example, the way that she explained the difference between an essay that would get an A and an essay that would get an A star was to say that the A was an impressive fireworks display, while the A star is a neat little sparkler. And that didn't make any sense to me, because who the fuck goes to see the sparklers? Question the third, locker combo. Is there a book you remember having to read but can't actually remember? See above. I'm pretty sure that at one point we had to read Goodnight, Mr. Tom, and I vaguely remember watching the film adaptation, or maybe it was a TV movie, starring John Thor of Inspector Morse fame. But as far as what the actual book was about, other than it's set during World War II and it's something to do with an evacuee, I have absolutely no memory at all. Question the fourth. CliffNotes. Was there a book you were supposed to read but didn't? As far as I remember, I read everything that we had to read for English classes, but I do remember one particular assignment for history that I definitely didn't do the reading. It was an essay where we were given the option to write on any subject we chose. So there wasn't an assigned reading list. We had to find our own sources. And I watched a documentary about the assassination of JFK, and then I got a book out of the library on that subject and didn't read it. You will be shocked to learn I did not get a good mark. Question the fifth. Electives. Did you read just for fun? What books were you reading outside of your assignments? Oh, definitely. The majority of my reading at that time was just for fun, as it is to this day, I suppose. But yeah, I remember. Even before secondary school, I was a big reader. I got into to Tolkien, The Hobbit, when I was about 9. Really geeked out on that. So in my teens, I was reading a lot of sci-fi. Starting with Douglas Adams, I got hugely into Hitchhiker's Guide when I was 12. And then I read a lot of sci-fi, going back through kind of influential classics of the genre. So I read like Fahrenheit 451. I read a lot of Philip K. Dick, and I I read A Clockwork Orange, which I probably shouldn't have read at that age, but I did. So yeah, that was the majority of my reading at that time. A lot of sci-fi, which was completely different from what we were reading for school. So maybe that's part of why I didn't particularly get on with a lot of what we had to read. Question the sixth, Rebound. What book would you replace from the typical assigned reading list? Again, I have to apologize for my terrible memory, but I don't really know particularly what's on the typical assigned reading list anymore, and therefore what I would replace from it. I mean, my nibblings, my brother's kids, they're both around secondary school age at the moment, and I know that they have also read Macbeth, and I think I've also studied an Inspector Calls, which I remember studying as well. So yeah, those are still on the list. I don't think I would replace either of those, but yeah, I'm not sure what I would replace. My teacher, I suppose. Question the seventh. Teacher's pet. What book got you excited about reading for class? I think it's probably quite clear by now that I didn't really get excited about anything reading for class. So the closest that you could get is probably Macbeth. But even then, the actual experience of reading it in class was not great. Hearing confused teenagers reading out Shakespearean English in halting voices is not a great introduction to Shakespeare. But I did like the play a lot, so I suppose that's the closest I can get to saying that I was excited about a book. Question the eighth. Study hall. What was the most difficult book you read in high school, i.e., the one you spent the most time studying? At this point, it's going to start sounding like Macbeth was the only thing we read, but I think in this case it probably was the most difficult thing we read. Certainly the thing that must have taken the longest time for us to read, because it is a dense Shakespearean text. There's a lot to pick through and discuss with it. And yeah, that probably is the hardest thing we read, and also the best. So make of that what you will. Question the ninth. Nails on a chalkboard. What was the book that made you groan when you found out you'd have to read it again? I don't remember ever having to read a book twice for school. I don't know whether that's a difference between the American and British school systems, or whether it's because I didn't do English at A level. Again, I don't know what the American equivalent of GCSE and A level is, but essentially GCSE, or a General Certificate of Secondary Education, are the exams that you take when you're around 15, 16, and those are the last compulsory exams that you have to do. And then A-level is what you have to do before you go to university if you go, which I didn't. I did do my A-levels, but then that was where I stopped. And when you do A-levels, you choose 4 subjects, I think, that you want to focus on. And when I chose what to do for A-level, I decided to drop English because I'd just not enjoyed GCSE English at all. So perhaps if I had done A-level English, I might have had to reread some books for that. But as it stands, I don't recall ever having to read a book twice for school. Question the 10th. Extra credit. What book do you think should be added on to every high school reading list? I've been racking my brains about this question, but I just don't have a good answer for it. I think because, as I've probably made quite clear by this point, I didn't really enjoy reading for school. I think kind of required reading, compulsory reading immediately turns me off, even when the thing itself is good. Being required to read it just makes me bristle. So the thought of forcing teenagers to read something that I love and possibly making them hate it because of that, I don't like that idea. I don't want to spoil one of my favorite books for another generation of readers. So I'm gonna respectfully decline. Question the 11th. BFFs. Tag some people you'd like to hear answers from. Well, this is a relatively new tag. As I mentioned, Nicole tagged me in her original video, so I haven't seen a lot of other people doing it yet. I think it's fairly safe to tag everyone that I've got in mind, so I will put a big list in the description, and obviously no pressure if you don't feel like doing it, but if you do, I would love to hear what you have to say, and I hope that you maybe have happier memories of secondary school than I do. But that's about it from me today. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you'd like to share with me what your favourite or maybe least favourite required reading was for school. But anyway, I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you when I see you.